You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, welcome to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell and Matt Adams, I'm Dave Griffiths. Glad to have you along for the ride. Quite an eventful week as the Colts trimmed the roster down to 53. That's the main topic of our discussion today, right, guys?
Sure.
The
Who's the 53rd player?
Well, yeah. Well, there's some player on the 54th or 55th, depending on how you view this whole thing, who's on PUP, that is going to steal a lot of our attention today. Jonathan Taylor is still with the Colts. The team-imposed Tuesday deadline of a trade to be worked out did not fall through. Did fall through, and did not give anything for either side, for Taylor, for the Colts, whatever. So we had Shane Steichen and a couple players talking today, Thursday, as we tape this podcast, but the prime topic of discussion has to be with Chris Ballard, general manager, and what he had to say this week on Wednesday. And Chappie spoke with us for, 50 minutes. And I think Jonathan Taylor probably took about 30 or 40 minutes of that time. And he made a point later in his discussion with us saying that, there's a lot of good things that have happened in this preseason, whatever, for the team, but it's all overshadowed. And he points it out, and rightly so. Like, it needs to be overshadowed because of the caliber of player Jonathan Taylor is, the level of competition that he brings to this roster, and just the ability that he has to help out everyone on this team, but in particular the quarterback that you're trying to bring along in the best way possible.
What do you say? Let's talk about the elephant.
Let's talk, right off the bat. Let's talk about the elephant in the room.
He gave us a few things. We're going to be a young team and this, that, and the other. And I said, okay, let's talk about the elephant. And I had hoped there would have been a resolution, one way or the other, and all they did was hit the pause button. Nothing's changed. At some point, and we've talked about it, at some point he has to practice. He has to practice, and either or not. I guess to me, there's no way this team's going to let him stay on PUP all year. That's crazy. He gets paid, but his contract holds. It does him no good. So at some point, and that's the next flashpoint that I've talked about, is that with him either passing the physical and then swallowing his pride and then playing, because it'll take some of that. The team's not going to change its stance. So, and then him saying, okay, what I need to do is show that I'm healthy, go out there and rush for whatever a truncated 13-game season turns out to be. And then we'll see. And his fear, obviously, is they're going to franchise him next year, which it's
a legitimate fear.
It is, but that's a leverage. That's a tool that the team has. That's what players gave owners to get something else. So that's what was curious is I thought Chris did a really good job of stating their view, but not getting real specific. Yeah, there were some teams involved. We're not going to get into what was offered, what wasn't offered. But what was really curious is how he responded to the injury and why we're still here. I've talked to someone, and I'm convinced that the team believes he's healthy. This is a hold-in. Do you really think the Miami Dolphins or Green Bay would have arranged a deal unless they had some assurance from Taylor that he was healthy? So, but what he said is, the player is still complaining of pain in his ankle. That's not the same as saying he's still hurt.
Right.
So
it's a little different.
Right. So, and the flashpoint will be when the team says, okay, you're 4 weeks on PUP, the window's open to be out there to play, and he says he's still not healthy. That's when it'll be the team. And they did this with Eric Dickerson back in the 90s. He refused to practice, and they suspended him. And it was a 4-game suspension. It was appealed, and the league, however it was back then, it was upheld to 3 games without pay. So we'll see, but this week solved nothing.
Yeah, and you bring up kind of what's next down the road, and that's kind of what our attention turns to with Taylor now, since there is, as you say, absolutely no resolution now, nothing. Like there's
other than he's out for the first 4 weeks.
Right, we know that. So 4 weeks down the road, what then? And between now and then, I mean, it was a Colts-imposed Tuesday deadline, but now he could be traded.
Trade him tomorrow.
He could be traded right now as we're on this podcast, and then we have to.
Let me check my phone.
We have to start over again. You know, that could very much happen. Sorry, Matt, you're gonna have to restart everything and set it all. But that's like that. That's obviously something that will be continuous between now and then. But then 4 weeks down the road, and he can't practice right now. Like if you're on pup, it's not just that you can't play games. I want all of our viewers or listeners. He will rehab
here. He cannot be on the practice field with the team.
Right. So that's what Shane Steichen said, that he would rehab here, because that's obviously a question since he wasn't always here during training camp. But Matt, this is it's a situation that, as Chap said, has kind of hit the pause button. And if you look down the road, if the status quo remains, it has the potential to get even more nasty than it was during training camp.
Yeah, they've essentially kicked the can for another few weeks, and we're going to have to keep talking about this. At this point, as a fan and such, you just wonder, is this worth the hassle of it? And how big of a distraction is this to the team? It's bad vibes all the way around.
Yeah, and for a guy to be still complaining of pain in his ankle for a surgery that typically takes 2 to 4 weeks, 6 weeks at the most, to come back from, is if he is telling the truth. Let's throw that out there. I know, Chap, you said that you've talked to person, you have a source, you have a story online right now, fox59.com, cbs4indy.com. Check it out. That says the Colts believe that
the medical staff believes he should have passed a physical in July.
There you go. That's specific. Exactly what they said. So it should be concerning if he is actually still complaining of pain. That would be concerning for a surgery that was that long ago. And like you said, what team would trade for a running back and give up valuable resources for a running back that is still complaining of pain for a surgery that should have been done way in the past, that should be completely in the rearview mirror by now? So I read an article today, and I can't remember where it was for the life of me, so I apologize, but it was somebody who talked with an NFL agent who said that his advice to Jonathan Taylor would be on the field and show that you're healthy.
Correct.
Because that's what you have to do right now if you're Taylor. You have to be able to prove that you're healthy if you want a team to give up any sort of package, any sort of value for you. And the Colts aren't just going to, as Chris Ballard said yesterday, he's not going to let him walk out the door just for nothing, because that's not good for the Colts.
I thought they might have done that.
You thought so?
Yes. Just to get the distraction and so that this player won't negatively impact the roster, the locker room. But he made it very clear that this player, it sounds, when you boil it down to what is really at issue, this player is a significant asset to the team. They're not going to just give it away.
Right. And Ballard just reiterated that, made sure we all knew that for sure. He said, if you don't stand for something, you'll stand for nothing, was another one of his great lines from the press conference with us, as well as, it sucks. It sucks for Jonathan. It sucks for the Colts.
It sucks for everybody,
It sucks
right?
for the fans. It
and
sucks
for podcasts.
It sucks for the podcast. It sucks for the Colts Blue Zone podcast. Yes, it sucks for the NFL. It sucks for everybody, the way it has gone down. It's been unfortunate the way it has gone down. Now, I thought one of the more intriguing things that Chris was kind of explaining was why now is not the right time to extend Jonathan Taylor. Because this is something we've talked about throughout the summer, that really both sides, as dug in as they are, have legitimate arguments.
Which is why it's hard to resolve it.
Exactly, for what they're doing. And Ballard explained the Colts' point of view for why it is not right to sign him right now. And I think he really had two main points, Mike, is that, number one, you won 4 games last year. So, and that's all he said. But after that, you can say, well, your team wasn't very good last year, so they're evaluating exactly which pieces are valuable enough. But at that point, you would think Jonathan Taylor is a valuable piece if he's healthy. Let me throw that out there.
Right.
And number two, which could be the more likely version of why Jonathan Taylor's not been signed yet, is Ballard said there's a new coaching staff that has come
Bingo.
in. And that's what you think right off the top would be the main reason why you would not sign a running back to a long-term contract, is if Shane Steichen has come in and said, well, let a little more woe than giddy up. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what value he is. Let's see what we've got. And then, or just from his philosophy in general could be, well, running backs are great, but they're not that great, and we should give our resources elsewhere. That's something that is a Ballard, Steichen, and Irsay, the whole triumvirate, would have to decide, I think, together collectively. And Shane Steichen, being the guy who's coming in to be a big part in fixing what the other two were a part of in the past, going 4-12 a year ago. You bring in this new blood to say, hey, help us fix this, and he says something about how he likes roster construction. You kind of have to go along with what he says at the beginning of his tenure here, at least.
Or why is he here? Don't bring him in and then undercut him when he says, whether it's a quarterback or whatever position, again, having a new set of eyes on this team is not a bad thing. It gives you again a fresh perspective. And he may say, hey, Taylor may be a great player, but let's see if he's healthy. Or, like you said, maybe he thinks, I don't need a top 3, which I still think Taylor is, running back. I can get by with Miles Sanders. I don't know what draft pick he was, but he rushed for 1,200 yards last year. If this team could get somebody to rush for 1,200 yards, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Whether it's Zach Moss or Deion Jackson, who've never done that before.
Right, exactly.
Who've never done that before. But so that I've always gone to we're never going to know. They're never going to tell us that, Shane just doesn't, he's not blown away by JT. I'm not saying that's the case, but we're never going to hear that. I just think we can't dismiss the 4-win thing. Okay, what if he win 4 games this year? You're not going to re-sign anybody.
Right.
So, but I understand what he was saying. And then, because he mentioned this when we talked to him pre-camp. He mentioned these, and he said, oh, by the way, he also has an injury. Which again, I think the injury goes away. If the Colts sign him to a 3-year, $40 million tomorrow,
it's gone.
Boy, that ankle feels pretty good right now. But I think that this is, and I've said this before, this is the most imperfect storm for Jonathan Taylor. Everything is working against him. All he's got going for him is just a great player and he's 24. Everything else is against him. And to me, the only way this is resolved is for somebody to change their stance. It's not going to be the Colts. So he's got to do something, some soul searching. October 31st is the deadline for trades. Although again, they can trade him tomorrow. But also the PUP rule. And we were going over this in the press room yesterday. For him to stay on PUP all year, he gets paid. But the contract tolls.
Now, what does that mean when the contract tolls?
It means we're back here in the next off season, and he owes him 1 year at $4.3 million. So he has to be activated. He has to be put on the active roster, so he gets at least 6 games towards free agency. So do the math on when he needs to be on the active roster. But if he doesn't get 6 games on the active roster, here we are again.
It's like Thanksgiving or just after Thanksgiving is what it would have to be.
So, again, he will, for everybody's point, he needs to be really on the active roster about 2 weeks after that PUP window opens, or it really gets nasty.
Yeah, let's not even envision that right now. I think it's legit.
It's there, but we got other stuff to worry about.
Exactly, I think it's legit for us to bring it up right now because now everybody's thinking what's next and what's next with Jonathan Taylor. Like I said to you earlier, Matt, it could be nastier than it is now. So I mean, you're certainly hoping that's not happening. And Mike, you make the point that that everything seems to be working against Jonathan Taylor right now, and you're right. But I think I would also counter that with, Taylor hasn't done much to help himself. Because if you want to be out, if you want to leave, if you want to be traded, you need to be on the field.
Prove you're ready and you can play.
And all the starters were playing in this preseason. He would have been out there with if he is healthy, he would have been out there with Anthony Richardson. He could have been here throughout this entire summer through OTAs, and you could have been at his best if he's healthy. And he could have been the same in training camp. And you could have shown that you're healthy. You could have shown that you're back to your 2021 form. But he hasn't done that. He hasn't been there. He hasn't helped himself to getting what he wants and getting out of here or getting a contract at this point.
Either one.
What are the other? No, his actions have not helped him, is what it seems like to me. And I still think if he's healthy, like you said, he's a top 3 running back in this league. He is an incredibly valuable offensive weapon. He's a unique weapon in the fact that his speed he is one of the fastest players in the NFL. Every year, he's up there. What he hit? 23 miles per hour as a ball carrier, which
he
was
2 or 3 of the fastest.
The 2021 season, was ridiculous.
He had 3 of the top 5.
3 of the top 5
right.
as the top fastest ball carrier, 3 of the top 5. And I remember when we asked him about it, he brought up Isaac Guerrero, who was a guy at Wisconsin who actually went to Avon High School right here in central Indiana. He was like, he hit like 24 or 25. And I'm trying to hit that.
You've got a good memory.
Well, I do because I did a story on Isaac Guerrero after that. That's why I remember it, like why he brought this up. So, like, but all that to say, he is a unique talent. At 24 years old, he has a career ahead of him. And yes, there are forces working against him here, whether it's what the NFL views running backs specifically, and in terms of other running backs who have hit what he is about to hit at the end of his rookie contract and either getting franchised or not. Right. But he has not helped himself to take the next step in his career this offseason.
Yeah, I've never liked it when during this people from the outside try to devalue him as a player. That's crazy.
That's stupid. It's ridiculous.
Don't do that. He is that special. And I disagree with some people. I don't think he's trying to reset the running back market. I just don't. He's trying to get his. Good for him.
And I agree with you there.
And I really don't believe Irsay's trying to keep a cap on the running back market so that other owners. I just don't believe that. I think they've taken a stance. I don't think. I mean, Ballard said yesterday that the market is what it is and all that. I just don't think they're that concerned about pumping up the market again. This is such a unique situation.
Yeah, one has to be true for the other to be true in that sense.
Correct.
Like, Jonathan has to be trying to reset the market for Jim Irsay then to be trying to keep him out. And neither of us believe that he is trying to reset the market. Like you said earlier, like if the Colts offered him a 3-year, $40 million contract right now, that's $13.5 million a year. I think there would still be 3 or 4 running backs making more than him in a per-year basis. Right. Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey being a couple of them. Like that, then that ankle would feel a lot better, a lot quicker in that sense. So yeah, what a fun discussion. What a fun thing that keeps going forward.
There were so many, and pardon me, Matt. It's probably on this list, and I just
it may not be. You never know.
I'm like the guy in high school. You're supposed to read things before you start writing, and I never read through the end of things. But one of the questions that was really interesting, because I thought Ballard did a really good job of avoiding a lot of specifics. But Kevin Bowen asked him about not having JT. Is that going to impede the progress of the rookie quarterback? And he almost started to say something, and then he caught himself, sort of like, no, we're going to work through this and whatever else. Of course, it's going to limit.
Right.
It's going to limit his progress because you're going from Jonathan Taylor, 2021 rushing champ, franchise record holder, to what? Zach Moss, maybe, if his broken arm is healthy.
He was out on the practice field today with no cast.
I think there's a chance. And he was catching some balls. He's got a chance. Or Deion Jackson, Evan Hull. I don't tell me that not having, again, I go back to July when Irsay kept mentioning, well, Peyton Manning had Marshall Faulk. So they know the importance of that. It's just that he can't say, yeah, but we're really screwing our quarterback with this. You can't say that. They know internally that not having JT is going to impede how good this offense can be because they've got questions elsewhere in its skill positions.
Yeah, defenses will play you differently when Jonathan Taylor's on the field.
That read option is a whole different beast when Jonathan Taylor's out there.
Yeah, and I think Anthony Richardson is going to be a weapon in the read option game. He sure has looked the part when he has scrambled, when he has run, and throughout the preseason. Things get different and tougher in the regular season, no doubt about it. But he's going to be tough too. Like it's going to be tough for other teams looking at him. So you want 2 weapons there in the backfield on the read option. Heck, you want 3 or 4 as you want to throw to Pittman or you want to throw to Drew Ogletree out there in the read option game. It's impossible to say with a straight face if you're the Colts that not having Jonathan Taylor there does not impede. I know that's like a triple negative right there, but I hope you all follow me. Does not impede the progress of Anthony Richardson.
It's a player's game. It
exactly.
just is. You can scheme all you want. It's still a player's game.
Yeah. So let's see here. There were a couple of trade offers reportedly from the Dolphins and the Packers. But I think I also heard that nobody, if the Colts wanted a first-round pick, well, they didn't even get a second-round pick in the offer. Those were the reports coming out of both the Dolphins and Packers camp. And whether they wanted to give specific picks or players in return, if they wanted to send one of their own running backs back, could have gotten Raheem Mostert, the former Purdue Boilermaker, toot, let's go, from the Dolphins or something like that, But whatever it was not appealing to Chris Ballard, and so here we are.
I was told he said we weren't offered a 1, not even a 2.
Okay.
And what's funny is then stuff starts coming out. I thought I read that Miami's GM said, well, we really never offered anything. We never got to the point.
Okay.
Like we never had any serious talks about this.
We just had exploratory talks. Well, I don't know if you're trying to say we like our roster. We weren't going to give away because there was talk about Jaylon Waddle. The Colts wanted Jaylon Waddle. Well, wouldn't you?
I would love Jaylon Waddle.
You wouldn't ask for their key special teams player for crying out loud. So that's why it's as much as it's good for us and the speculation for things to be leaked or told, whatever. It's not good for negotiations. It was never good for Jim Irsay to come out from his beautiful motorhome and first say we're not, whatever was said in there was private, and then he spilled.
Then just kept going.
Just kept going. But it because the problem is, and Ballard sort of mentioned this yesterday, of how you get emotions involved, and it just kills negotiations. And it's obvious to me that Taylor has felt betrayed. We've all wrote about it, and the Colts talked about it. Chris Ballard talked about, admitting that there's interest in re-signing JT back last year, and even in January, somebody asked him, he said, "Yeah, with your star players, that's what you do." And at some point, whether it was April or May, after he talked to us about, this is Taylor, after he said, I signed my contract, pen to paper, 4 years, blah, blah. After that, he was told, well, we're not going to give you an extension. And that's when it hit the fan. Mm-hmm. It did. He changed agents and did it. One thing, again, we can just continue to harp on, this is not agent-driven. It's not. This is JT-driven. And anyone who thinks that, blame the agent. No, I mean, the agent is his mouthpiece. And Jonathan Taylor is a brilliant person. He is. He's driving all this, and that's why he's going to have to soften his stance. He just is. The team's not. The team's not going to do it. So he has to, at some level, say, okay, I tried. I did my best. It didn't happen. Now, like you said, the only way to prove you're worth whatever, even the franchise tag next year, is to go out and play him and be productive.
Yeah, and somebody has to kind of eat a little crow in this situation. And like you said,
the Colts aren't. But can you see JT?
And that's something that was also discussed kind of in the press room. Like I wish that we should just put like a mic in the middle of the press room. That would be its own podcast.
You'd need the cough button though, because there's a lot of words being thrown around.
Right, but we would like about Taylor. What could happen? This is something that I think it's possible. It's just kind of off the wall a little bit. Would be if Taylor wanted to save face at all in this situation, he would fire his agent again.
I like that idea.
Get a new agent. You get a new agent, and then show up.
Suddenly, everything is fixed.
Exactly.
So
well, it was the agent's fault. The agent took it too far and all that.
But again, like I say that's the path you could go down. But it's not a path necessarily that I think many people would believe, because, like you said, Jonathan Taylor is the brains behind this operation. He's the one who made the decision in the first place to change agents.
But people don't believe the injury thing anyway, so we're at the point that we don't believe anything.
Exactly. Don't believe anything.
We're reading body language while he looks like wearing his hoodie during practice.
Every practice, it's a black hoodie. It's the sunglasses.
I do feel that's a little bit why Ballard tried to strike a little bit of a conciliatory note yesterday, to just kind of leave that door open just a little bit. And then when he says, relationships are repairable, well, you don't repair something unless it's broken down. Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
I asked David, he said no. Did you ever see War of the Roses, the movie?
I haven't.
It's Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner, and they end up both killing themselves at the end. They were divorced. And they cut their that seems like where this relationship is. Although, again, stick around long enough and things change. But for things to change, there has to be compromise, and so far there's been zero compromise.
Yeah. Until one side takes a step toward the other, we're dug in right now. And
they're in the trenches.
Exactly. So here we are. We're dug in, and I'm sure that we'll talk about it over the next couple weeks here on the Colts Blue Zone podcast. But that's where we are, and I don't think that there's too much more that we can get into with the Taylor situation right now.
It just sucks the oxygen out of the room.
It just sucks.
It just sucks in general.
It just sucks.
But he's right. It's amazing how you've got a rookie quarterback, and we've written about Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about him. Mm-hmm. But it's still been secondary to this.
Yep.
And it should really, after Steichen named Richardson his quarterback, we should have been number 5 all the time. Mm-hmm. And we weren't. We weren't, and we couldn't be.
And what Chris Ballard said, as we turn shift the focus to the rest of the team, was something I alluded to earlier, that there's been a lot of other positive things going on with this Colts roster. And the very first thing he mentioned was not the quarterback. It was not. And Chap knows, because I told you I was going to say this earlier on this podcast. The very first thing that Chris Ballard mentioned about the positives with this team was the left tackle, was Bernard Ryman.
We were talking. I didn't notice him.
And that's the best thing you could say about him this
Exactly.
preseason. I never noticed him once. Unlike Quentin Nelson, who had a couple penalties in this preseason. It was not his best preseason. And this entire offensive line is going to have some awkward moments because they have a unique quarterback. Ryman talked about this to me in the locker room after the Eagles game, saying, you have to learn, you've got to hold on this guy. And if all of a sudden he jerks one way, you got to let him go.
Yeah, you got to disengage.
Because
otherwise, the laundry's coming out.
Yeah, if Richardson's scrambling out to his left side trying to get around
Which
Ryman,
is going to happen this year.
Yes.
And we already saw it in the preseason a couple of times.
Yes, and you got to let him go. So that's something that he's learning. It's a lot different than blocking for Matt Ryan, that's for sure, who is not going to run except for that one time.
39 yards.
That one glorious run the other year, which was their longest run of the season for a while.
Until JT got, I think it was still their second longest.
Yep. So, but anyway, all that to say, I think, I'm not making any final decisions on Bernard Ryman, obviously, right now, but I think all Colts fans should be far more optimistic now. Whether you see yourself as really optimistic or more pessimistic on Bernard Ryman, you should be more so optimistic now than you were at the start of this offseason, because he had a good offseason, he had a good training camp, he had a solid preseason. And now comes the game.
Hope it carries over.
Exactly. Then now the stuff matters. So we'll see exactly what he can do. But he graded out well in the preseason. I think there is reason, Mike, to be optimistic about the state of the left tackle. Not that it's an all-pro state, but that it is a stable state. And that is something we have not been able to say for a little bit.
Since Costanzo was here. It's funny how you don't appreciate Costanzo until he's not here.
10 years, no Pro Bowls. But dadgummit, you would have taken him back in a second.
So good.
I always used to argue in the locker or in the press room about the most indispensable Colt lineman. Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly said, no, it's a left tackle. Mm-hmm. If the left tackle doesn't work, the offensive line doesn't work. You can, losing Ryan Kelly will hurt, especially with Danny Penner out. And losing Quentin Nelson will hurt. But we've seen, because right now, who's the backup left tackle?
Arlington Hambright?
Probably.
Maybe? Yeah, it might be him.
That's still an issue. The offensive line is an issue because of the depth. Unless these guys all play 17 games, which they did that in 2019.
Right.
When they all played.
Crazy
It
year.
happens once every 20 years.
Once in a blue moon, which we just had last night.
Somebody's always going to get a rolled ankle
or
So there we go.
something. Super blue
Danny
moon.
Penner, he's down the field and he gets rolled up and he
breaks his ankle and he's done for the
tears
year.
his
So hard when you're in the trenches there.
So, but that's the thing, and I'm encouraged by the offensive line. We'll see. We were kind of encouraged last year, not to this level, because they took every snap and this, that, and the other, and then they were not very good.
No.
But I was encouraged because keep in mind that they threw Ryman out there last year.
Yeah.
It was Denver, national TV.
Short week.
And short week.
Yeah.
They didn't practice, and he was coming off an ankle injury. So I'm very encouraged.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, and I'm eager to see what happens. It's not like, ooh, I'm dreading to see what happens. It's I'm eager to see what happens with him. So a lot of decisions that Chris Ballard had to make over the past week, along with Shane Steichen and the coaching staff and the front office and all that for solidifying this 53-man roster. Maybe one of the biggest surprises on the roster, Chap, was the fact that they let Darius Rush go, the 5th-round cornerback, and they kept 7th-round draft pick Jaylon Jones instead. It's something that Ballard kind of talked quite a bit about on Wednesday of this week, just alluding to something that he had talked a couple months ago after the draft, saying that he had one scout that was just banging the table for Jaylon Jones over and over again, and he finally like, fine, we'll draft him. And he was right, is what Chris Ballard said. He thinks Jaylon Jones could be a real good player, and the fact that he has played as well as Jones has, is the reason that they cut Darius Rush. And now Darius Rush with the Kansas City Chiefs, because you know that he wasn't gonna stay there. At least you certainly didn't think. You thought that that's a prime candidate for someone to take on waivers, and they did. So he's gone to Kansas City with the world champions. Guess you can't really sneeze at that if you're Darius Rush. Going from the Colts, a team that is a building team right now at best.
A polite way of putting it.
That's what we'll call it.
To the Chiefs, who are the reigning world champions and have aspirations to win every year that Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback. So that was kind of the biggest takeaway for me from the roster. You agree? Anything else that stood out to you cutting down to 53?
No, because somebody said, well, why did you cut or waive Darius Rush? He said Jaylon Jones.
Right. Directly.
And that's one where, you trust your scouts, during the process pre-draft, and you're confident you got things lined up, and then you get them on the field, and then you just see that one guy wasn't to the level you thought he was, and the other guy who like you said, they were high on Jones from the start, but not as high as they are now. So that's encouraging. It's still so nervous that they've got one proven corner in Kenny Moore, and he's a nickel. Yeah. And Dallas Flowers was a kick returner until December. So it's anxious. This is the passing league, and but that's where they are, and that's still an area we knew it was going to be an area of concern, and it is.
Yeah, if we stay with corner for a second, Matt, Ballard also talked about how much he loves Tony Brown, because he's the other player that you would think, oh, maybe they cut Tony Brown. They have room for both of them.
Very valuable special teams.
It's valuable special teams. He talked about how much he loves his competitiveness, his fire, how everyone in the locker room loves Tony Brown, and also, like, if Kenny Moore goes down, he's your backup slot guy right now. And we've seen how well, last year wasn't Kenny's best year, but when Kenny is at his best, if he goes down, that's a big loss for the team. So to not have a backup for Kenny,
Nick Cross might be a possibility as a nickel
right there.
But still, you need backups. You need backups.
Credit to Chris Ballard again, saying that talking about Nick Cross the other day, too, saying that he probably set the expectations too high. It wasn't quite Chuck Pagano calling Malik Hooker Ed Reed in the opening press conference, but he thinks he felt that he set the expectations for a 20-year-old draftee Nick Cross a little bit too high.
Did he not start the first game, second game?
I don't believe so.
I thought
he might have started one game.
Or he played a lot of then he just didn't.
I think he did, and then he just
And then Rodney Thomas was better than expected, too.
Right.
He's a seventh-round draft pick out of Yale. He comes in, and all of a sudden he's pretty solid there on the back end, and so he's playing, and Nick Cross is not. So everyone's like, "What the heck?" And Chris ate a little crow with that, saying like, "You know what? I was wrong. Like I shouldn't have pumped him up the way I did. I was excited to get him, but with a 20-year-old, like it takes time with those guys.
And sometimes that's on us as fans and analysts.
It's never on us, Matt. It's never on me. It's never on Chad. You speak for yourself over there.
Because guys have expectations, and you think, oh, they traded up to get this guy. He's really young. He's got great speed. He's going to be great immediately. Sometimes it does take a guy a year or two to work his way in. And we want this immediate gratification, and it's not always there.
Well, Mike, you talk about depth. And I can tell you one position where the Colts do not have any depth. And Matt's already laughing about it. And that is wide receiver. You know why?
They got 4 guys.
You have 4 guys. And at one point, you had 3 guys on your 53.
And there was a reason,
roster.
but yes.
But it was still funny.
But it was.
It was
hilarious. Like I was there, I was envisioning, and I tweeted this out there, a 5-wide tight end set with all 5 of the Colts tight ends out there in empty formation, and Anthony Richardson in the backfield. Like I still want to see it. And actually talking with Mo Alley Cox today in the locker room, he made a joke about having 4 tight. He might actually have a 4 tight end set out there if they have 4 tight ends on their active game day roster. So that would be fun. I would personally love it because they have some unique tight ends, guys. That can
and Granson he's that hybrid.
Yes.
He's almost a receiver.
Yes.
So, but still, 4 receivers, and 2 of them are slot guys.
Right. With
So
Downs and
it's
McKenzie.
really, that's an area. This needs to be all about making things as easy as possible for the rookie quarterback.
Just not doing
And
it.
you're not doing it. Running back and tight end, fine. That group's what it is. But wideouts, again, it's just you're asking a lot from right now. There'll be a 5th, and they've got like 3 or 4 guys on the practice squad. So and these guys use the practice squad as well as anybody as far as elevating players, but there's just some areas you just want to shake your head at.
Yeah, DJ Montgomery, Amari Rogers, Juwan Winfrey, all on the practice squad right now as the Colts get ready for this next week of the NFL season.
And don't forget Mr. Strawn
And Mike Strawn.
on there as well.
Excuse me,
Packers
yes.
Megan
side.
Strawn.
Yeah, fine. Okay. I'm past. I'm past on Strawn.
I thought somebody might try to take a flyer
guy.
on him.
I love talking to him every time I have in the locker room.
But
But
at some
if you see
point,
his presence
it's
on the field,
like
exactly.
now.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Like, when's it
I
going to
mean,
be? So, like, if he turns things around and all of a sudden rises from the practice
God
squad
love him.
to Pro Bowler, you can prove me wrong, and I will eat crow.
Don't give me a Pro Bowl. Just give me 20 catches.
That'd be fantastic. 20 catches from Mike Strawn this year. But that's where they are at wide receiver right now. You got Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Isaiah McKenzie. Those are your 4. And I'll say this for that makeup. Usually, in years past, if you have 5 or 6 guys on the 53-man, one of them would be inactive perhaps throughout the week, and another guy would be mainly a special teams guy. So there's it's not ludicrous to have 4 guys on the roster. I think it's unusual for sure.
It's
Ballard's
atypical.
never done it, and it leaves you with very little depth at this time. And if you have 5 wide sets, then it leaves you with very little flexibility in terms of what you have and what guys are able to step in with their specific roles in those areas. So, I'm not trying to say it's a good thing. I'm not trying to say it's a normal thing, but I don't think it's a ludicrous thing. 3 was crazy for a second, but as Chris Ballard explained, they were doing some roster mechanics with that. They had to get Jelani Woods onto the injured reserve, and then they brought back Isaiah McKenzie.
Well, and it was a waiver guy. They were bringing in 3 waiver guys.
Yeah.
So they needed room. And they, again, just to explain to people, they didn't waive Isaiah Rodgers. He wasn't exposed to waivers. They released him.
Right.
They probably said, again, go down and have dinner. We'll have you back here in 2 hours. So they knew they weren't going to lose him.
Right.
You put,
Isaiah McKenzie. You said
Isaiah Rodgers.
Isaiah Rodgers.
Oh, boy.
I haven't got Isaiah McKenzie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I was just waiting a second.
I'm glad you did. But again, it's they knew they weren't going to lose McKenzie because they were bringing him back. But still forward, it's unusual.
That happens to us this time of year. All these
All the
names
names
are
come
just
together.
spaghetti in the head right
I mean,
now.
they have another Isaiah that they're putting on the roster as well, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But
yeah.
It happens. It's no big deal. But yeah, no, I saw that yesterday, and I'm like, what? They released McKenzie. They only had 4
Right.
wide receivers, and I
Right.
mean, I know what they were doing, but still, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, the player they named, they added their Isaiah Land, a defensive end / linebacker from Dallas. And I think with the Colts, I don't think he's going to be a defensive end. Like he, even though he was more so in college at Florida A&M, go Rattlers, strike again. He's like 215 pounds, and he's like 6'3", 215, 220. Like, that's not defensive end in the NFL. Maybe if you are in a 3-4, you can play the outside linebacker a bit
They
there. You can add
generously
a little.
list him as 6'4", 235,
Yeah,
which
no.
is not
0%
the case.
chance.
No.
0.
No.
That's like listing me at 235
Right.
pounds or certain other. I'm not gonna get into
Don't
that.
go down that rabbit hole.
Exactly. No. Not gonna go down that rabbit hole at all. But I also will say, like, from my time in Tallahassee, Florida, like I still follow plenty of people in the media down there, and Isaiah Land was a game wrecker at FCS level, MEAC or SWAC. I think they moved to the SWAC actually recently, Florida A&M. So he had 19 sacks as a junior in 2021. So, like, if you want to dip down into that pool, like Chris Ballard has said in the past, of lesser competition, whether it's FCS, whether it's D2, D3, Like, it needs to be an elite guy at
he
that
needs
level.
to dominate at his
and
level.
And he did. And Isaiah Land dominated. And people in Dallas, as you're looking at it, like, we're not happy that the Cowboys cut him. That he wound up on the waiver or waived him. That he wound up on the waiver wire because they wanted him on the roster. He had a good preseason. Like, he was making plays. So if he's going to come here to the Colts and you see exactly, well, what can he do? Well, he's going to be a linebacker for you that is behind Shaquille Leonard, obviously, and Zaire Franklin and everybody really there right now. You'll throw him on special teams, and he might even be inactive, and you'll just try to develop him and see what he can do after a year and a half. And I think that's a name that will be more relevant next offseason than it is right now, but it's still a name to at least keep your eye on. Also claimed offensive tackle Ryan Hayes from Miami and offensive guard Josh Sills from Philadelphia. So, Chap, I think those are unsurprising moves that, like you had said, you had tweeted, you had written in your stories online that the offensive line needed to have some kind of bolstering throughout the waiver claim process, and they went out and got a couple guys there.
You just wish that it had more experience or some experience, but teams don't get rid of experienced linemen.
Exactly.
They just don't.
Hang on to them.
Right.
Yeah. And now the Colts are at a place where I mean, they're starting offensive line. You can make a case that you like it. I mean, it's Ryman, who I've already talked about very well this podcast. Quentin Nelson, former All-Pro. Ryan Kelly, Pro Bowler. Will Fries. And then Braden Smith, who you really like over there at right tackle if you're the Colts. So you have at least 4 guys, I think, that fans could optimistically feel really, really good about on that line if you choose to be of that ilk. I know sometimes I'm not the most optimistic person. You guys who have listened to the podcast know that for sure. I will give you the bleaker side of things. I'm not afraid to do that. But if you go beyond that, Mike, if you go beyond those 5 guys, like there's very little veteran presence on this roster that you can say if somebody goes down injured, you know what, that's not the end of the world because we can fill Danny Pinter in right here. You know, we could fill. A couple years ago, they were going back and forth between Mark Lewinsky and Chris Reed, a veteran offensive guard who stepped in, and really they didn't seem to miss a beat.
There was no drop off.
You don't even have a guy right now like a Joe Wrights who has played in the league for 6 years.
On and on.
Yeah,
correct.
Like you don't like if a backup ever comes in, it's always going to be a step down from your starters. But there is nobody right now that you can look at their track record in the NFL because they have no track record in the NFL.
And that's what we talked about with this roster. The concerning thing is the level of depth. I mean, everybody has depth. You got 53 players and 16 or whatever on the practice squad, but you're going to get guys hurt. And on this team, almost at every position, if you lose a major guy, it's really debilitating. Maybe the only position that's not the case is quarterback. Because, Minshew has played. Minshew has been, different levels of successful. But the other positions, although running back now, holy smokes, you go from one, number 3 guy to another number 3 guy. But that's what's alarming is that the reliable, proven depth is lacking, and that's one thing that they always used to have. Their roster was a strength, and that's not the case now.
Yeah, it's somewhat ironic, Matt, that the most important position on the field, quarterback, is maybe the position that would be best off if the starter, knock on wood, gets hurt this year.
You're not wrong. I mean, they do have they've got Minshew back there, and I mean, Ellinger's not bad as a third quarterback if you've got to use him.
You can do a lot worse. He has NFL starting experience.
He has some experience. I mean, I know it didn't go the way that he would have liked and the team would have liked, but he's got a little bit of moxie to him, so it's not awful.
Yeah. You look up and down this roster at the reserves, and I was talking. Chap and I were discussing this earlier when we were out watching practice. Like the places that you feel best about their the depth. Like you think defensive line, you have some experience there. You bring in Taven Bryan from Jacksonville and on the interior. But if you're going to him more often, that means you lose DeForest Buckner or you lose Grover Stewart. So you lose one of your best players. Sure, the floor for some of the backups on the defensive line is higher, but that means you're going down from players that you think are really, really good and will be key to your success this year.
But you've got a Tyquan Lewis.
Yes,
you've got Dio, and you've got Samson Ekubam, who we really haven't seen much of.
Yeah.
So I do like 6 or 7 deep. And if you get that much deeper than that, then any team's going to have trouble.
Right.
So, but safety, you've got not a lot of depth, really. So it's just tight end, I guess. I guess.
So they've got some guys there, and like you said, defensive line, I think they're okay. And quarterback, they do have some depth, but everywhere else, it's kind of a crapshoot.
Linebacker, I'm okay with because
Yeah,
you
I
play
agree.
so much.
Yeah, you do have some good guys
package, and you
there.
only normally have 2 guys out there. And if Shaq's back, and he's still in concussion protocol, but he did not have his red jersey on today, which generally is a sign.
That's the last day.
It's the last step.
Him and EJ Speed, by the way, both of them.
Correct. So, but we'll see. I mean, no one should expect Shaq to be Shaq in September. I mean, it's right out of the gate. He's got to get his confidence back. He just does. But as long as he's a top tier linebacker, then the rest will come. So, and again, I don't mind those. And then Grant Stewart's just he's
a missile on special teams. Just a missile.
And that's what you need. You need guys who are a little bit crazy. But he had to have a zillion tackles in preseason. But I'm not too worried about linebacker.
Well, the Colts have named captains for this year as we turn toward the finish here of the Colts Blue Zone podcast. 7 players. Shane Steichen told the team it would be just the top 7 guys and vote getters. We're not worrying about offense, defense, special teams, all that. Just the top 7 guys who get votes. And 6 of them have been Colts captains before. You got Ryan Kelly, Quentin Nelson, DeForest Buckner, Shaquille Leonard, Zaire Franklin, go Orange, and Kenny Moore. All 6 of them have been captains before, along with 21-year-old rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson.
That speaks volumes.
Yeah, I thought that was huge reading that.
Yep.
This isn't a popularity contest.
No, it's
not. It's not. His teammates have seen something.
This is not high school.
No.
Like this is an NFL locker room. If you're still working your way up to earn the respect of the guys in the locker room, they're not going to vote for you. It's just not going to happen. So to have him be elected a captain, I think is significant for sure. And
again, like you said, he's 21, and we talked to Ryan Kelly. He's 30. I believe he is. Is he the oldest Colt, or is Luke Rhodes?
Luke Rhodes is technically the oldest, but not by much. They're both 30 years old. No Colt is 31 or over, and that I say that knowing that they're moving stuff around a lot on the bottom of the roster right now. So don't roast me if that's not the case on Friday.
I thought I saw the average age is like 24 and a half.
Yep. That
is just young.
Yep.
And one of the roster novelties that I noticed, and it included the waiver wires, they've got 14 guys on the roster who were not drafted. That's just incredible that you got that much of your roster. It's probably, 28, 29%. But it just shows you they've got guys who, for whatever reason and circumstances, they've kind of fought the odds and proven that they're worthy.
Yeah.
But it's still a novelty to have 14 guys that no one thought was worth drafting.
That's more than a quarter of your roster, more than 25%. And I mean, you have first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round, sixth round, seventh round picks, all those guys, and then to have that many undrafted.
And in the
guys.
seventh round, you're not throwing darts, but you're taking flyers on guys that I kind of like this guy and this. And no one saw these guys as that.
It's very reminiscent, this roster, of that 2017 roster, the one that Chris Ballard first had, when let a lot of veterans go, had a lot of young guys, threw it out there, and let's see what happens. And if we take this back to our discussion earlier about how Chris Ballard is handling the Jonathan Taylor situation and not extending him because you're 4-12 last year, maybe this year is throwing some young guys out there and deciding exactly who you're going to build on in the future. Because obviously what they have done up to this point over the past 6 years has not led them to where they wanted to be. And it's because they haven't gotten main pieces right. Quarterback has not been right yet. Left tackle has not been right yet. Pass rusher has not been right yet. So right now, it's a season that is very much a transitional season. That's what it feels like as you look at this roster, because it is so similar to that one that was back in 2017.
And I think the fan base will be fine with that as long as you see the quarterback making progress. I think as much as it would be awful and tough to deal with to go 3 or 4 wins, I think they might win a few more than that. But as long as you see, but boy, in 2024, when they can add this, when they can add Marvin Harrison Jr., who knows? But as long as you give the fan base hope, and there's a light where they can see, as opposed to what we've been through the last 4 or 5 years, where it's just recycling and it's the same thing over and over again. And yeah, Phillip Rivers got him a playoff game, but so I think the fan base will be okay with that. But you need to see the quarterback playing well. You need to see the left tackle playing well. They've not gotten that right. Well, maybe in 3 years they're going to load up and make him, rich beyond his imagination as a left tackle, which is a good thing. You want like in 3 years to be paying Bernhard Raimann $20 million a year
plus. Yeah, totally.
So but again, that's we'll see. And it's funny, we had a real nice talk with Richardson the other day, and his personality comes through, and you hope he is the answer. It's going to be rough. And the one stat that will pound home, and I've mentioned, I went back and did the research on Colts rookie quarterbacks. Their overall record is like 35% wins in their careers. And the last rookie Colts quarterback to win the season opener was, have you any idea? There's been one.
No, I don't. I have no
George
idea.
Shaw.
Okay, I was
1955.
So I remember reading your piece, and I remember 1955.
Yeah,
but I couldn't remember the guy's name.
It's just incredible. Yeah, luck was the aberration, 11-5, but it's just hard, and that's why to come back to what we started at, to not have Taylor and to have a light receiver room. It's just not making things set up well for your rookie quarterback.
And the fact that the franchise as a whole has lost, I think it's 9 season openers, or not lost, or not won.
2000.
Not
I say
won.
they didn't lose last year.
There you go. 2000. That was a step forward.
It was.
Exactly.
2013 was the last one, right?
Yep.
The Raiders when they were still in Oakland.
So that's 9 games in a row. That opening week has not produced a win. And like you said, rookie quarterbacks has not been kind to them. So we will see if Anthony Richardson and the Colts can buck history and set this franchise on an optimistic path for the 2023 season next week as the Jacksonville Jaguars come to Lucas Oil Stadium. Fortunately, they are in Lucas Oil Stadium and not in Jacksonville.
Because we know what happens down there.
I have been there too many times. It is the curse of Dave. But we'll get to that later on in the season, and we'll get to the Jaguars game to open up the year next week right here on the Colts Blue Zone Podcast.
They look to be a good team.
Be a pretty darn good team. For Matt Adams, at Statamatti, Mike Chappell, at mchappell51. I'm at DaveG_sports. My name is Dave Griffiths, and we'll see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone Podcast.